Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today are life coaches Cindy Chavez and Jackie Gates. This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. And speaking for myself, I am happy to be taking another breather today. I've been putting the nose to the grindstone lately because with the summit over last week, of course, the next stage is I have to take all of the video recordings and turn them into a package for the people who bought tickets and for resale purposes. And if anyone has ever done work with video, it is a time-consuming process. It takes a lot of time. It takes patience. And it takes a willingness to go for doing your best work, even though you really don't want to, because it's taking so damn long. So sometimes you do need to take the break and just kind of give yourself that breather, which is what doing the LOA Today podcast does for me. But it was actually what I wanted to make the topic for today, because I think it's kind of overlooked, and I'll be interested to know what you guys think too. But I think that if you don't aim to do your best work, you're actually putting yourself in a state of lack. You're basically saying, well, I'll just settle for second best. And of course, when you settle for second best, you get second best. So, but what do you guys think? What's your take on that?
I think that everyone's always doing the best they can.
Okay.
But I think that you had said something about taking a breather, and that kind of brought the thought to me that when we're not taking good care of ourselves, we can get into a situation where we are sort of, the phrase that keeps coming to mind is phoning things in.
Yes.
It's sort of like, and it probably is the best we can do, because we don't have the energy to do better. We don't have the resources to do better because we're maybe going too hard or expecting too much. I had a client say to me today, I've been forgiving myself when I think I'm not getting enough done. And it opened up a really interesting discussion about that, about our ideas, our expectations of ourselves, of how much we think we should be getting done, or how much, and it seems like what you were just talking about, aiming too high. Sometimes we really expect a lot of ourselves, and because we expect so much, we get into a position where we're not rested up enough, and then we can't give what we could give. And so I always want to do my best, and I know what my best is, I think, most of the time. And I want to keep myself in a space where I have the energy to do my best. And I'm not beating myself up for just phoning it in because I just couldn't go anymore. So it's kind of a balance, I think.
Yeah, I think the chance or the tendency to, do I have an echo? Sorry. Okay. I think the tendency to do our best is admirable until it ends up as a subversive perfectionism that actually gets in the way of us being able to sustain a level of good work, right? So should I leave and come back in again?
I'm trying to figure out where the echo's happening. It's actually looping through you and me, and I haven't quite figured out why yet because I got headphones on. So, yeah.
All right. I don't have anything else on, so.
But I'll mute myself while you're talking. That should help.
All right. So it is a case of, like Cindy was saying, we're all doing the best we can. And I think it's really, there's a lot of, push yourself to the limit that is embedded in our structure. We see it right from people as commodities, through the industrialization. The more you can give, the more you were praised. And then we end up, with that sneakiness that unless I give my everything, it's not worth anything. And then we get the perfectionism and then we don't rest. And then we have twice as much to bear because we're trying to fill we're trying to pour from an empty pitcher is one of my favorite sayings. And it's not possible. And so the counterintuitive way to do your best work is to cut down on, and then also be totally fine and compassionate with yourself if you do B- work instead of A+ work, occasionally. It's not that you aim, well, I will say from a marketing perspective, we played with doing B- posts, like not over editing, not being perfectionist about them, just posting them. And it's amazing the freedom and creativity that allows you. And so for you, if you were my client, I would say, please remember that this is your first time with doing a summit, and this, what you're feeling is not your best work right now, is actually your previous self's version of, holy crap, I'm really making it, right? I have a summit. I'm putting this thing together. So it is a perspective, and we need to lighten up on the control of what we perceive as quality and just allow ourselves to do the best we can with what we have. Because if we keep doing the best we can with what we have, it gets more and more. We don't end up depleting ourselves. And so I will always, my favorite thing is do what you can with what you have. And when you have more, you'll do better. And it is that. It's a case of perfectionism will rob you of everything.
Yeah, it's our willingness to take imperfect action.
Yes. So you getting the videos out to your people as promised with all the gems that are in there is so much better than you sort of sacrificing yourself on the altar of video perfection, right? It made me think of now I can see him, but I can't remember the guy who put together the director of Lord of the Rings, who put together the Get Back documentary on the Beatles, and he took down 50 plus hours down to 6 or 8 hours or something, or whatever it was. And he kept saying, okay, at this point, this is as little as is perfect. And that's what he worked towards. So it is a case of watch that you don't end up doing your less than perfect work simply because you've depleted your capacity to do any work at all.
I think you're both making great points. I would point out, I don't think I anywhere in what I said pointed toward perfect. I was really wasn't talking about perfection.
But it is a case of you're trying to do your very, very best, and I wanted to make sure that it didn't end up in this perfectionism where you wipe yourself out in the process, because we want you whole and here.
And I appreciate that. I definitely appreciate that. No doubt about it. Yeah, I agree with that. In fact, I think
it's good to sort of know where your line is for any particular thing, where it's good enough. I hate to say those words, good enough, because sometimes that sounds like we're just, oh, it's good enough, just pass it. I don't mean it that way, but I mean, we can feel proud of it. Like, yeah, I think this is good enough. And because we know we could keep tinkering sometimes. I mean, I know that with my paintings, right? I could tinker forever, but at some point I have to just say, no, I'm really happy with this, and I'm going to go ahead and, let it be done, I guess, is the thing.
I did a 5 days of finishing stuff pop-up program on Facebook. And you know how when you offer things and you think, oh, I'm going to teach them this, and I'm going to teach them that, and I'm going to teach the other thing, and then they all jump on the one thing that you did sort of threw away and didn't think was that important. Well, this piece of done for now. I think when we have tasks that are ongoing or that we could get better at, self-improvement is one of those things. Learning a new skill is another thing, right? We tend to go, we'll deplete ourselves in service of the skill we want to master or the thing we want to deliver. But we can allow something to be done for now and come back to it. So this done for now, I was saying, you will never get to a point in your house, for example, where everything is perfect. Unless you're going to do a show house. In my experience, that's the only time my house has been absolutely perfect, is the moment I walked out of the door when it had been staged for sale. And within 10 minutes of coming home again, it wasn't perfect anymore. So done for now is just such a powerful phrase, where your videos will be, the summit can be done for now and absolutely so juicy and so good, and you didn't feel depleted in the process. It's like there is a line where we go, as you said, good enough, and it's just like any further is just delaying the chance of delivering it to the people who are waiting.
Yeah, I think you're making valid points. I still want to make a counterpoint, though. My counterpoint is, and I'll point to many companies we can all think of that are large companies that offer services that are glitchy as a regular thing. For instance, we have, for our cable TV, we have Xfinity, Comcast. And I can't tell you how many times Louise, who's usually running it with the remote, is uttering blue words trying to figure out how to make the damn guide work properly, because they settled for, well, it's good enough. Well, it was good enough for them. It wasn't good enough for us, but it was good enough for them. So I think there's a balance to be struck here, and I think very often the balance is struck too much in the other direction. I think there's a lot of lack of emphasis on doing better. I mean, you mentioned doing as well as you can do for now, with the implication of going back and improving it later. But so often we don't go back and improve it later. Well, it was good enough. We'll just leave it right there. And that's the state of what we end up with. It's with so much of the economy today. We end up with so much stuff that just doesn't really work well, but hey, well, it's good enough. I think there's a balance here.
I think the rules are very different for big conglomerates compared to individual people. Our individual product and whatnot. It's we can pivot, we can go back, we can revisit things and tidy them up and make them even better. Getting somebody to fix a small but annoying glitch in Comcast's huge Titanic of a business requires the kind of attention to detail that they don't have. And they should have. I totally agree. But we have, as individuals, we have that chance. And if you read Seth Godin talking about this, that's what makes us so powerful as entrepreneurs, is that very ability to be present with our products and present with and not settle for, we can do done for now, and we can do the first draft and we can do those things and we can navigate where good enough is just good.
Okay. I agree with that. I just wonder how often what we're coming out with on that first draft is just good. I wonder if it's even that good many times.
Well, how many times do people not do a first draft at all because it's not going to be good?
Right.
Oh, sure.
That's the thing. That's the imperfect action thing right there, is that recognizing that. I think wanting things to be, these are two different things, right? Like doing our best and then wanting things to be perfect can actually be two different branches. And if we want it to be so perfect that it prevents us from doing it at all because we think it's just not good enough, then that's a real, problem. But wanting to make sure that we feel good in ourselves, that we've done our best, and sometimes that changes. We have to say, well, I did the best I could for the time I had, for the money I had, for the resources I had, for the energy I had. I did my best. And like,
oh no.
Has she frozen?
Oh, okay. I thought it was both of you had frozen, so that's good to know it was only one.
Yeah, She's frozen.
Oh, okay. Because you froze earlier, and I thought, oh no, are they both frozen? Like, or is it me? Am I gone? What's going on here?
It is very much, it's a balancing act. And I think we each have to go with our own integrity. And I will just, because I'm always on about this, we cannot sacrifice our urge to create. She's texting you, I bet.
Internet crash, she says. Yes.
Oh dear. Yes. So it is, but it is so good to talk about this, because we want to be able to say it's okay to be done for now and go and fill your well. But it's also okay to just start knowing that it's not going to be perfect or even as good as you would like it to be on the first go round.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. And I guess the way that I've been looking at it as I've been working the last few days, because I spent the last 5 days on just the first session. But
right.
I did that knowing that once I get it the way I want it to be, and I think I've got it now, doing the second video is going to take me about a half a day because I've got my pattern. I got my pattern. So I took the extra time. I could have settled for where I was at 2.5 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't want to settle for it because it was okay. Yeah, I mean, it was probably good enough, but I knew it could be a lot better and it would only take a couple more days to do it.
Right.
So I figured that's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you knew that time thing. You didn't keep going back to go, and I can do, and I can do, and I can do, right? You know, and that's what happens a lot of the time. So you've got manuscripts out there that are actually really good, and people don't present them to editors because they're still busy editing, right?
Yeah, they never see the light of day.
I will admit to that. I have 35,000 words written, and I sent it to somebody just as here's something I wrote. There's pieces in it that'll be useful. And she went, oh my God, why isn't this published? It's like, because it's not good. She goes, she said, you could put this on Kindle right now. And I'm going, no. I have a year's worth of editing to do here. And she went, and she's going, no, you don't. So it was so funny to see this, and I'm really preaching to myself here. Is that like we have to balance that. Where is our best for now is good enough, and we can go from there. Welcome back.
She's back.
I have no idea. That hasn't. I don't even remember losing internet for so long. And I had this thought. It was like Walt talking about his.
I thought that too.
I think I had an evil thought about my cable provider.
Yes, and the guy from Comcast is listening and go, and you're done.
I was thinking to myself, I didn't even say it. I just thought it. No, but hopefully this isn't, I didn't veer off topic, but while I was gone at my short little backstage area right there, I was thinking about how if we notice that we're not doing our best, like in anything, right? It may be it's information for us. It may be a sign to us of something, right? That, I mean, if we're not doing our best at our job, that's a good thing to look at. Like, what's going on? Am I not happy here anymore? Or if we're not doing our best in our relationship, if we play a sport and suddenly we can't keep up, we're not doing our best, we may have a health issue. Like, it's always good information if we come to some place where we recognize that we're sort of not able to do what we think should be our best or whatever. So it's an interesting thing to ponder.
I like that idea of looking at it as information and go rummaging as to the why, as opposed to you are a terrible person, you must just work 100 times harder.
Right.
Yes. Which is what my brain goes. Well, obviously you should be working harder, but it doesn't go, yes, but why? What are you? I was doing really well at this. What has happened?
Mm-hmm. I think that message we get from the world about working hard. We get it from the time we're born, you know. And it's
pretty much.
Yeah, we get badges for martyrdom, you know. And my mother would say, "Martyrdom will kill you." And it's just, it is that thing where we just keep giving until we need to stop and realize, okay, so how far beyond being able to give my best am I, and go from there.
I just had an image in my mind of that guy at Comcast who pushed the button to knock out your internet. He finally, after listening to the rest of this conversation, he says, "Okay, I'm done. I quit. I'm out of here." So I think we're good for the rest of the show.
Right. That's funny. It really was weird. I was like, "Can you what?" I'm texting Walt. I'm like, "I don't know what happened. I'll be back. I'll do my best." I said, "I'll do my best to get back here."
Your best was perfectly good. It was just fine the way it was.
So, Walt, this topic, and I know you've connected it to like putting the summit together. Like, how has it affected you? Like, what's come up in your mind about it?
Well, that's why I talked about it being a balance, because I think the point you guys are making about how you can take it to that perfectionism realm. I mean, Jackie, while you were knocked offline there for a bit, was talking about how she had this script that she'd been working on, and she said she's got another year's worth of work, and her advisor was saying, no, it's fine, publish it right now, just go for it. No, I got to edit some more. I mean, that kind of thinking is something we've all gotten into. I was stuck in that for years, and it's toxic. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But by the same token, if we treat it as an object lesson, no, we'll never ever do that again. And then we start, lowering the standards way, way down. Now all of a sudden we're setting ourselves up in the other direction, because they both are setting ourselves up. One is setting ourselves up for exhaustion, and the other is setting ourselves up for not feeling good about what we put out.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So we have to, in all the cliched advice, follow what feels good. So you mentioned that you knew that in 2.5 days you could feel a whole lot better about this progression of your videos, right? And you were going to get, so that's what you aimed for. Whereas, maybe there could have been a different version of you that went, you know what? I'm going to do them all and then see how it looks. And that would have felt good, or whatever, it's just like, so the following the feel good, because phoning it in doesn't feel good.
That's right.
Exactly.
But sometimes trying to keep doing our best doesn't feel good either.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to just follow what is right for us and exploring the why. Why am I not enjoying this anymore? Well, is this and this? Can I fix it? Do I want to fix it? Can I be done for now and come back tomorrow and have a good, better viewpoint on it? Any of those things will lighten up and veer you away from martyrdom or perfectionism, or keep doing what doesn't work.
And it might change over time, right? Like my standard I had for a certain thing at one point in my life where it always had to be, just so, I may realize at some point, doesn't really, it's not that important as I thought it was. And so at that point, I feel okay with, not having to have it just so. I tell my husband all the time, your standards are for you. Everyone else gets to be let off the hook.
Yeah. I was reading about, there's a particularly, clever and LOA-centered, money coach called Denise Duffield Thomas. And she did a fabulously, detailed post about how she started her first program. And she said, I did it this way, and I charged this much, and here's what I learned from it. And then she did a whole lot on how she's turned into a millionaire, etc. But right at the end, she said, and I want you to know that all of this in the latest iteration was only because I started with the first one. I said, I need to do the first one first, because sometimes your best only comes from starting with what you can do now. So I know for my own program that I'm building, I can see how good it can be, but I don't want to wait until it's that good before I offer it now. When I say it's that good, it could be so huge, but that may take 2 or 3 years. And it could be even better with other people experiencing the work, and then we weave that into the work itself. So there gets to be a point where you go, I have to let this go out into the world and then bring it back in and see how we can make it even better.
Something else you said kind of cued a thought in my mind. You mentioned that, how did you say it? You said that Maybe you said maybe our best is where we're feeling the best.
Yes.
So maybe we have to redefine the word best.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the best that we can do is the one that feels the best.
Yeah,
Maybe that's what best is.
Yeah, I think it changes because we have to remember there are folks out there that wake up feeling less than physically or less than energetically or less than at their best on a daily basis and navigating life, with a chronic fatigue, a chronic illness, as something going on that makes life, there's a lot of contrast going on. Your best on any given day is what you decide it is and how much you want to invest of yourself into that thing. And so, from the outside, okay, I'll use an example. I can run. I can't believe I'm even doing this. I can run from here to the end of the block at my very best. But my very best is going to be nowhere near Usain Bolt. He's there and back and 4 times in the time that I'm running.
That's true.
So best is so incredibly individual. And like Cindy said, it's even in the moment. And when you know differently and you feel differently, you do differently. And notice I don't use better. I think better becomes a judgment. They say, when you know better, you do better. No, it's not. You know differently. And so you do differently. And that way, your best keeps changing. And that's the most delicious thing.
Mm-hmm.
Using the same principle of feeling, we can probably also apply that to the word better. It isn't whether you know what's better, it's what feels better.
Yeah. It's just like that. Yes, agreed. It's because the feelings, I think the feeling that you're doing better than you thought or that you were, that's increase. That's just, there's an increase there. And we are naturally geared towards increase. We want increase. That's growth, right? And so, we're not asking for fabulousness. We're asking for an increase. And that's a good thing.
I love that we tied that in. I think we were talking about this last week or the week before about whether, I think it was Wallace Wattles. It could be Napoleon Hill. But the idea of being a person of increase.
Yep.
Right. And so when we start out in one place, like when we start out and we want to build wealth, and so we invest a little bit that we have and then it grows, it's the same sort of thing, right? If we're doing a project, and every time we do it, our intention anyway is to learn more and to have it that bar of what our best is to be raised a little bit, because we're getting better at it. We're getting more proficient. We're learning more things. We're learning what not to do. We're learning what to do and what works. And so that's the increase right there. It's like our expertise can grow and our comfort level can grow and all kinds of things we start increasing. But I think that being comfortable with, knowing that we did the best we could do at the beginning, like you said, which it may not be anywhere close to what we can imagine if we had more practice and more resources, but being willing to do it. Like Walt didn't say, well, I'm not going to do a summit because I know there are summits out there that, people have spent millions of dollars on and they're just over the top fantastic and I'm just not going to do it. No, he just said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take a class, learn how to do it, and I'm going to put one together.
Well, I did think that, I have to admit. I did think that for a moment.
It didn't stop you, though. It didn't stop
That's right.
You, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That's the thing. We can't let that stop us. But just knowing, how do you feel, Walt, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being you did your absolute best and 1 being you phoned it in? Where are you on the scale?
Well, now that we've redefined the word best, I would answer it differently from the way I would have answered it before we did the show.
There you go.
Seriously. It's a very different feeling now. When I'm associating the word best with how I'm feeling, am I feeling great? Am I feeling poor? Am I feeling somewhere in the middle? And that's representative of whether I'm doing my best. Well, I would say especially since the summit, I've been feeling great. So I'm near a 10.
You can't ask for better than that, right?
Yeah.
No, exactly.
Top of the scale.
I did a quick Google search. It was Wallace Wattles. I know neither of us could remember which one it was, but he said here, you are a creative center from which increase is given off to all. I really like that. And he said, do everything you do in the firm conviction that you are an advancing personality and that you are giving advancement to everyone. And this is this piece of we do what we can with what we have. We give what we have with the best of intentions. And then we let it improve as we get more skills, more resources, and all the rest of it. And that's the piece of increase. That is so for example, my 35,000 word script sitting on my computer is not actually increasing anybody except the person who fell over backwards when I sent it to her. So, it is this, when you are a person of increase, your best and is always bettering, right? You're always raising your own bar. And that's so what humans are here for.
I like what you read also. We talked about a person of increase, but you said a person that is always advancing, I think you said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, giving to the advancement of everything. Of everybody, he said. By doing his own work, he unfolds himself. Really like that. So I should probably read that book again. I quote it all the time, but I think I misquote it most of the time.
I actually bought it. I bought it in a hardback, in a paperback format so that I could highlight it.
Yes.
And it's right here, like I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking the same things. Like, I need to go back through that again. I've read it several times.
I got it on public domain on the very first Kindle I bought because I didn't have a copy, and I don't know why I didn't have a copy, but it's so highlighted. It's just like, it looks like somebody took a box of crayons to it.
Mine too.
It's just, but that's the joy of Kindle, is that you can go back and say, oh yeah, what did he say about? So, yes, it was very cool.
And I think it's encouraging to think about this in a way that we can recognize that we're always doing it. Like it's how nature's nature is to increase and expand and advance, right? So if we will recognize that we're always learning something from our experience, and we can, not be so hard on ourselves about things that we think haven't turned out right, because we learn something from it. And the only way to really learn anything is just to live it, right? Just to allow it. So I like that idea of always knowing that we are advancing and we are increasing, but when we let that become a conscious intention, then we start looking at everything differently. We realize that even that one step back is lending itself towards the steps forward.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also liking this equivalence that we've created between better and best on the one hand and feeling on the other hand, because that's creating brand new questions, a completely different way of looking at the whole thing. So if I want to ask myself, how am I doing, and replace it with, how am I feeling about what I'm doing? That's like an entirely different answer.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a great question too.
Because it's an internalized comparison as opposed to externalized.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. And it's an upward moving one, because the only way that I don't even see it as a backfire. The only way that it doesn't work the way you want it to work, let's put it that way, is if you find that the way you're feeling about what you're doing is going down, and that's the clearest sign you could possibly get that it's time for a break.
Yes, exactly. Time for a done for now. Yeah.
Yep.
And like you said, it's an internal thing. It's not how do I think everyone else feels about how I'm doing,
right? Yes, absolutely. And that's the best benchmark of all. You only are in comparison with who you were yesterday or 5 minutes ago in this case. And, it's just like, I'm pleased with who I've become in the past 5 minutes.
There's an interesting corollary that goes along with this too, because as I think about this, I think about the work I was doing specifically on this video. And I would do a version, and then I'd make, no, this has got to be changed. I would change that. And, if I were the viewer, I would really want to see that and so forth. And if I look at it in terms of the way I used to look at it, which was, okay, I got to make this, really, really good for the user. That is the route that can potentially take me down the spiral. But now if I look at it in terms of, yes, I still want it to be really good for the user, but how do I feel about how I'm doing making it good for the user? Mm-hmm. That's an entirely different thing.
Yeah.
It makes it really easy for me to determine very, very quickly, yes, I want to keep doing this particular path, or no, I want to stop this path. And it has nothing to do with what the user thinks about it. I mean, it indirectly does, but it more directly has to do with how I feel about continuing down that path.
And that energy will transfer into your project.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, without a doubt. Mm-hmm. And it'll keep it sustainable. You won't end up, horizontal for 3 weeks in recovery mode.
Which I was there, by the way.
Because you've actually been feeling good, even though the stretch and you've been working much harder and putting in more hours and all these things, right? And there's been frustration and, that kind of stuff. It's all there, but the fact that you feel good about what you're doing makes everything different.
It also helps you feel good about what I've actually been doing schedule-wise. I don't want to call it that because it sounds like there's a schedule, and I'm not working on a schedule. Dividing up my time. How have I divided up my time? Because there have been long stretches when I would just work on the project. And then I'd reach a point where in the past I would have tried to plow through. Oh. And in this case, I can't really plow through right now. But I don't really want to go off and do something else. What can I do? And I got my piano keyboarded. So I just stopped and went over and played some piano for 15 minutes. Now, 15 minutes of practice isn't going to do a whole lot, but it did a lot for my mental state.
I was going to say, it's a big
yes.
Yeah.
It's still an increase. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, my fingers didn't get a huge benefit out of it, but my psyche did.
Yeah. But, Walt, I mean, it is true that consistent practice of anything is going to give you more benefit than, 15 minutes a day over time. It does.
It's true.
Benefit.
Yeah,
it's true.
And we have to remember consistent is not the same as continuous, right?
That's
so
right.
15 minutes a day is actually better than 3 hours a week.
Right.
Oh, no doubt.
Yes.
No doubt about that.
Yeah. So we do.
And it's an energy shifter. So
I
see so much benefit to your keyboard. It's exciting.
Huge. Yes, absolutely.
And I totally agree. It's important to do it more frequently rather than in binges. And whether it's piano or anything else, I mean, daily walks, changing diet, whatever it is. I mean, no matter what it is, doing it a little bit every day is going to be a whole lot easier in the long run, if for no other reason than you're establishing a new habit. It's hard to establish a habit once a week for 5 hours.
Right. And because exactly. And an incremental change becomes a behavioral thing. Because you are that habit. I mean, and when you start doing, I am somebody who does this often, or this 15 minutes a day, or whatever, that becomes part of your identity, and therefore it stays, as opposed to, you having to work at doing it. It becomes part of who you are. You are now somebody who plays the keyboard.
And in addition to that, maybe piling on top of it in a sense, because I am using the keyboard both as an opportunity to just play the keyboard every day, but also as a release. I'm now building in a very positive association. I mean, again, all I was doing that day, 15 minutes, I wasn't playing any songs. I was just doing some scalar type stuff, nothing that's fun to listen to. But because I had the relief and release associated with it, I actually have a much more positive association of doing the scales just because of the way I did it, just because of the way I approached it.
It's a win-win.
It is a win-win.
It is. Yeah. Absolutely.
So I'm really beginning to appreciate this whole thing about changing the way we define the word best. To me, this definition is huge. Defining best in terms of what feels best, not in terms of what somebody else thinks is best or what your previous standard of best would be or whatever.
Yeah, because the metric is your own. The metric needs to be your own. We outsource our metrics way too quickly. We, we judge our weight, our wealth, our positioning, our scripts, whatever you can name it. There's an outside metric. And when we can pull the metric into what's important to us, what feels good, what feels aligned or in integrity or useful or whatever those metrics are that we have for ourselves, that's really, really, really where the juice is.
Well, also the metric is how good we feel.
Right. Yeah.
Because the whole reason we do anything is because we think it will cause us to feel better, right? It's like that's the goal. And so if that's the metric, then it's perfect.
And interesting use of the word perfect, by the way. But the point, it's a valid point. I think it's absolutely correct. And in fact, what it's also doing is that it's encouraging us through our own behavior to positively reinforce every time that we're focusing on what we like, which means we're going to be more inclined to try to do that and less inclined to be drawn into those old patterns that don't necessarily feel very good, but they're very familiar. So I'll just slip back into that again. We're shifting all that because now we're actually liking the liking.
Yeah.
Liking the liking. Yeah. So that outside comparison. Oh, it's the number one thing that will cause us, like, you want to get depressed, just start comparing everything you do to someone else. And it's like, that's the downward spiral for sure.
That's sure thing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a good thing to stay away from. Mm-hmm. This is good. I always love it anytime I can come away from a podcast episode with one new thing that I learned. And I got one new thing I learned. Like, yeah, okay, victory. I like this.
I've been sitting here thinking, this is going to be one of those things that I kind of ponder after the show and onward. That I kind of take with me to where if I catch myself thinking about perfection or thinking about something being good enough, I will definitely check in with how do I feel? It's just it's a good exercise. And I have this happen every once in a while, right? Like during a show, I'll be like, oh, I can see this is going to continue to play out over the week. It's good.
Yeah. I always have that thing where sometime during this evening, I will think, damn it, I should have said, I know about this thing and I completely forgot to mention it. And and then I'm going, no, it's done for now. We'll talk about it next time. Or something.
Yeah, see, it's done for now.
There isn't I did, again, I showed up the best I could in the time. And yes, if I forgot that thing, then it's annoying, but there you go. But yes, invariably I will go over our conversations and go, I should have said.
I do that too. As a matter of fact, my brain doesn't really ever stop working. And my husband and I, in the last year or so, have been doing a lot of puzzles, crossword puzzles, and like we're playing Wordle and, all these things. And the New York Times has a puzzle called the Spelling Bee, where it gives you 7 letters and you have to make as many words as you can. And my goal is always to get the queen bee, get every single word I can. And it's hard. And I will wake up in the middle of the night with a word. I will like, oh, I have to stop playing these puzzles because I wake up in the middle of the night with that one crossword answer we couldn't get. I'm like, I know what it is. And my brain has been working on it the last 3 hours I've been asleep. So that can be annoying.
Yes, it can.
It's like that. I don't know if you guys watch football like I do, but there was an ad with Troy Polamalu, who was an amazing football player, and all the hair, and he's saying he's never not working, and I sat there and go, damn it, I'm never not working either, and how. That's not such a good thing. So now I'm making times and I put it in my diary, not working in this hour, not working. And then I go, okay, so if I'm not working, then what am I doing? And then I'll say, oh, well, I'll write something. Wait, is that working? No, not if I'm enjoying it. Right. No, it's so funny because I have these things where we're working and what I love doing and I feel good doing are so enmeshed, and that's a privilege and something I've also worked very hard to make. But it is an interesting thing that we when we feel good about stuff, it doesn't feel like the traditional definition of work. And when we look at best and we remove the traditional definition, we get to play with it differently too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's one of the things I'm loving about this new way of thinking about best. That best is what does it feel the best? How good does it really feel to you right now?
I love it too. So
yeah,
neat.
because that just changes the whole game around completely, entirely, tremendously.
And again, it's sort of back to the basics, right? Like that's a very basic conscious creation thought.
Oh yeah.
Right? How does it feel? And sometimes we have to be, thank you, Jackie, for reminding us, to like go back to the very basic thing and check in with it, because that's really what we're doing with that. It's a basic tenet of anyone who recognizes that we can create our experience. Like, and what do we want to create? We want to create experiences where we feel better. So how does this feel? Love it.
It's amazing how the obvious is so often not obvious until we say, oh my God, that's so obvious. But it's so true.
In almost everything, whatever you learned going into whatever it is, whatever you learned at the very beginning, the very foundational basic things, those are things we can always go back to and they always benefit us. It's like even all of the ideas that we have about health and nutrition, and there's 9 bazillion supplements that are going to do everything imaginable for us, and there's a million different ways we can move our body and all these things. But I always go back when I'm working with clients to like, how are you sleeping and are you drinking water? Right? It's like really basic stuff. So I'm very happy that we talked about this today. I love it.
I'm loving also that this is a sort of a conscious variation on what people sometimes talk about when they're referring to getting out of their own way. Usually that's meant in terms of, usually it's getting your ego out of your own way. Your ego's in the way. If it weren't for your ego being in the way, everything would be fine. So get that nasty ego out of the way, which is to be perfectly honest, that's a concept that I kind of resist, because I don't like the idea of thinking of the ego as if it were a negative thing. I don't think that way at all.
I don't think that way either.
Yeah.
I love my ego. It's got me very far.
But the point is that I'm trying to reach is that there is validity in trying to get past the ego at times to the subconscious programming, for instance, because you're trying to rewrite the programming. We had an instance of that, and we've actually made mention of it the last couple of days here on the podcast. But from the summit last week, the fourth workshop, we still have one workshop left, but the last one we did was the fourth workshop. It was one where Dan Mangena basically did this thing where he helped people get behind their ego, get behind their conscious mind to help make some changes to remove blocks that were in their way. And one of the most amazing results that came out of it is that Maria, who was also one of the presenters, was there for that thing. And when she was kind of in the hot seat, he was working with her. She had an amazing result come out of it, because for more than 30 years, she's been living with pain from fibromyalgia. And it's the way she described it was she was rarely living with pain that was like 8 on a scale of 10. That was just normal for her.
Wow.
And after she went through that session, the pain dropped to 0 and has stayed at 0 ever since.
Wow.
Goodness.
Which is like that. That's like a mind blowing kind of, it's one of those things that you can't plan for. I mean, this was a summit about money and we got a health result, great, but not something you can predict. But the point that I'm trying to get at is, yes, we got past that ego. We got past that into the programming that was beyond it. But we did it, the way Dan does it is so gentle and so positive and so reinforcing that you really don't think of it as the ego getting out of the way. You really think about it as just getting into the rest of the mind. And when you look at it that way, that's really what this whole idea of the best being what feels the best is doing. It's getting past all that brain functionality and just getting right down to the heart. Just skipping past it. And you're doing it consciously. So you don't even need to have somebody leading you through a process like this. You just skip past it.
I like that.
Which sounds so simple when you describe it that way, but that's pretty darn powerful.
And it's so interesting that you use the phraseology that you're getting round the mind and into the heart of it, which is exactly where we are, right? When we're getting past the thinking and all what does best mean. to how do I feel? What does my heart say? Does my heart say continue? And like you were talking about it, your heart said continue for the next few days and I'll have it just right. And, so you did, and it was exactly what you wanted. And so, but, sometimes the brain will have a different message.
Always.
And then so you can tap into what's true for you, and where that sits is in your heart and your solar plexus, not in your head.
Well, and a reminder too, that feelings are in the body. Like when we ask ourselves, how do we feel? That's something that's important, is to take a moment to check in with how it actually feels in your body. What does it feel like? A wonderful friend that I had that's no longer with us, may she rest in peace, she was a hypnotist, and she would use this word, this concept. She would say, what does your body mind say? And it always kind of threw me when I would hear her say, well, what does your body mind think about it? How does your body mind feel? But your body mind. And I think about that now when I'm asking myself how something feels, that it's in the body. We so often try to fix it with the mind. We try to fix the thinking with more thinking. And instead of just going with how does this feel to me? And then listening to what we're actually feeling in the body. Does my body feel tired? Do I feel energized? What emotions am I sensing?
Yeah, very cool.
It also reminds me of something else too, because I've been in contact with Maria by messenger, text messages, and so forth since then. And she's just ecstatic, of course, with change that happened. Wow. I mean, you can imagine 30 plus years and all of a sudden the pain is gone. It turns out also that her daughter also suffers from pain, from fibromyalgia. And Maria had kind of like the presence of mind to say, I'm going to do a little experiment here. So she didn't tell her daughter about the result because she wanted to see how does her change in vibration affect her daughter. And it turns out that the last report I heard, which is about 2 days ago, was that her daughter's pain was down.
Wow.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So it shows that not only do we get a great result when we get into that feeling space, because that's really what she was doing, but when we get into that great feeling space, we also have a positive result on others, and a positive effect.
Yeah. Well, that's what Rhonda said. Do everything you do, and you're an advancing personality. You give advancement to everybody.
Everyone. Yeah.
So as we change, so everything changes. Everything is everything. So, yes.
That's great reinforcement, because basically how many people, including myself, have wondered at, one time or another in their life, what have I really contributed? Is it worth me being here? Has anybody ever actually benefit from it? And the answer is yes. And here's the proof. Here's the evidence you've been looking for. You just have to
I believe that. You are the contribution. You're not here to make a contribution. You are the contribution.
Yes. So agree.
But still, there's that internal conversation that we have to deal with, to find a way past. And to me, this helps. It makes it much easier to get to that space of, yes, I am the contribution. Sure, I know that that's true now. But when you're in the space of lack, so to speak, you don't really feel that so much. You need the evidence.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. I love that her own experience is like transmitting to her daughter. That
right?
I love that, because it goes right into quantum entanglement, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I mean that's quantum physics. Is that something, an experience that you have, and if you've had somebody in close proximity to you, or in this case mother-daughter, their experiences can be transmitted, and we don't know how that happens, but it does. And so she's proving quantum entanglement. It's just magical.
And there's so much of that happens too around identity, right? It's like I have X, I have fibromyalgia, or I have whatever. And we say it because it's true. I'm in pain. We say it, but then we keep telling it, and it just, builds on itself. And sometimes to get away from that identity, it doesn't mean we're not experiencing the pain, but it's like, it's not who we are. And when we have generational things, it's really even doubled or tripled to say, my mother had this and I have this too. It's like it runs in our family. Like, this is what we deal with. And sometimes that shift, it's actually a big shift, but some of it's connected to identity. And we can, like you said, we go around it, right? We work in a different way. That's fantastic. What a great story.
And I think we've only heard the beginning of the story. I have a feeling it's going to play out some more. I'm not sure how, but when you have a shift this big, this is a big, big shift.
It's enormous. Right? It's so incredible. And when you think of, I think of this from a cellular level. Like she's had 30 something years of her cells saying, sending this message to the brain about the pain that they are in, right? And now all of a sudden they've changed their minds. For want of a better word. Your brain has, your body has had a change of mind. And this is what the kind of stuff miracles are made of.
Yeah.
I
would call this a miracle.
I would too.
Yeah.
I think it's the best kind of miracle because it's the kind of miracle I can understand how it happened.
Wouldn't it be lovely if it became so commonplace? It's just, that would be so good. It's like, it pull somebody in and we get right to the heart of it, literally the heart of it, and we can turn off pain in an hour or so. So good.
But I think that's what the point is. I think that's precisely what the point is, because we have here an example of how what we've been talking about actually happens. And when you have that evidence.
Exactly.
That evidence just
because if it can
reinforces
happen
in a way.
for one, it can happen for all. Absolutely.
Yes.
Which means that we're having that
all
effect.
will start, right? Because we're all connected.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
and it means that all these times that we're talking about this stuff, every time that we're bringing these things up, we are having an effect that we don't see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Every single time.
Yeah.
I think Neil said it really well to me recently, Neil Positivity, who does the Friday show with me. He said, the stuff that we're creating today is going to be affecting people for generations.
Oh, yeah.
That's a really powerful thought.
We add to the cosmos all the time. Absolutely. I mean, this is how my 3-year-old grandbaby knows how to turn on the damn iPad, and it's just like, I'm sitting here going, how do you turn it down? And she goes, she can't put a complete English sentence together, but she can show me how to use a tablet. And this is just generational. She's born with this knowing from all the generations that have come since the internet started. We just know. We just know. And it's so interesting because we also just forget. Because they gave a dial-up phone, a rotary phone to some teenagers, and they didn't know how to use it.
Oh, yeah.
And it was so interesting to see that we can let go of the stuff we don't need. And that's also wildly useful. So
that's a great
juicy.
We could do a whole conversation on that part. The stuff that we let go of because we don't need it anymore, and it actually goes away.
Yeah, because we're past, we've not necessarily even evolved, but it simply is no longer relevant to who we are.
Yeah. But what you said that Neo said reminded me of when we were going through the Neville Goddard books. And a woman had said to Neville Goddard when he was a baby, he was like 3 years old, said, you are going to teach things that people will still be teaching. People will still be remembering what you're teaching 100 years from now. And Walt and I were going, wait, it's almost been 100 years. We're doing it. We're like the fulfillment of that, right? So
that's right.
It's true. It just keeps going.
Mm-hmm. So good.
And you can just imagine how he feels about that, right? Like, oh yes. Ching, ching, another one. All right. This is good.
I love it.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the clarity. This is some good clarity I got today.
Yes.
I really appreciate that, ladies. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So really, really good. And look forward to carrying on the conversation next week. In the meantime, thank you to the podcast listeners everywhere, and we will see you all next time here on LOA Today.
And to the Comcast guy for not cutting us off completely.
We do appreciate that, too. See you later. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.